passive gold making enchanting concentration build video. This time with a little bit more of an EU focus, as I know you guys are struggling, but there's stuff in this video for everyone, whichever region you play in. Now, we're looking at min-maxing the gold making from the enchanting concentration build that's already making some of you millions of gold from some of the screenshots you've sent me. Now, some of the stuff in this video might be obvious to a lot of you, but it's stuff that's popped up on the Discord since we launched it. So it's stuff that some people are struggling with. So I'm going to talk about all those things in this video. And like I said, hopefully we might be able to help the EU players get their recipes a little bit cheaper by talking about something that I don't think I've seen me or anybody else on YouTube talk about before. So anyway, quick fire stuff first. So firstly, the spec. Now, as you know from the last video, we're going to use the knowledge points that gives us plus skill, and that's in the everlasting enchantment section, which is going to give us the plus skill we need to sort of make the concentration cost as low as possible. And that 30-20-20 that you run will depend on what enchant it is you're trying to craft for profit. As far as supplementary shattering is concerned, my build maybe took 30 supplementary shattering and 30 in immaculate ingenuity. That's fine. That is your minimum. Now, some of you have been talking about also putting the points in resourcefulness as well. And this is completely fine. This is going to increase your profit margins because you are then going to have that resourcefulness as well. Now, I'm not going to 100% say whether this is right or wrong, but the fact you have to take into consideration is there are ways in which you can spend more gold to make more gold, but it is not always the best choice. Say something is increasing the amount of gold you make from your concentration builds by, let's say, 5%, but it's going to take you 2 weeks worth of concentration cooldowns to pay it back, then it's just not worth it. So you have to balance between the cost effectiveness of what you are putting into the build to what you get out. So getting the extra 30 knowledge points to max out resourcefulness is not particularly difficult. Like I said, it will increase your profit margins, but it's just, will it increase your profit margin enough for it to be worth it? So getting enough knowledge points to fill out the resourcefulness tree as well as everything else we need in the build, then it's getting easier and easier every week as we get more catch up. So if you want to do it, that's fine. I'm not saying it's wrong, but definitely don't go and put a huge amount of gold and effort into doing this. If you can get it all with catch up and you're going to just disenchant 30 Dark Moon decks to get that, that's fine. That's, maybe probably worth it. If you are going to be doing sort of the weekly handing quests, you're going to be going and collecting treasures and stuff like that, sort of the weekly treasures to get one profession knowledge and stuff like that, it's not worth it in the amount of time it takes for the benefit you're going to get from it. So just think about that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong either way, because different content creators have done this differently, but just think about the balance. So the same is true for the profession tool and the enchant on the profession tool. So in the last video, I said about you could get the epic enchanting rod because the amount of art and security that you need to do that, you're going to get loads more than that just from sort of doing the spec. And getting that with ingenuity on it is a huge buff. Now you see here, I've got a rank 5 enchanting rod with a rank 3 enchant on it. And this is an absolute waste. The amount of gold it costs, it just does not pay for itself. The difference between getting the rank 4 and the rank 5, what it will cost you is significant. And so I really think it's worth just cheaping out on the materials, getting the rank 4 and probably just getting the rank 2 enchant. If you are going to get the epic enchanting rod, that is, because like I said in the last build, it is optional. It's just something that helps a little bit. But once again, it's a balance between, do you want to invest that little bit extra to be a little bit better? But how much profit is it costing you in the meantime? But 100% don't do this. Don't get a rank 5 and a rank 3. Go for a rank 4 profession tool with ingenuity and a rank 2 ingenuity enchant if that's what you are going to go for. So something that was pointed out to me last time was that I'd completely forgot about using forged frameworks in the concentration enchanting build. So 100% you should be doing this. you only need to really use the rank 1 one. It gives you a huge buff to your ingenuity, which is going to sort of increase your profit margins. Now, the price on these has been going up a little bit recently, so do keep an eye on that, because people tend to take advantage of things like this when it sort of gets mentioned in the video. Using the Forged framework on all your enchants, in addition to using the Shatter Essence and the file, then using all that, then you should be able to get an ingenuity between 35 and 40%, which is going to give you a lot more crafts using your concentration than we sort of had with the previous builds. Now, on the EU at the moment, the profit margin, so on the stuff that comes from the knowledge tree, so these are the easiest ones to unlock, about 3k gold approximately on the EU at the moment. On the recipes that you're buying from the auction house or you're unlocking in other ways, these are going to be the recipes we'll talk about in a minute, and these are going to be 4.5 sort of 5k gold profit margins. And then there's the ultra premium ones, and these are sort of 7.5, 8k gold per use of concentration. The built enchants all come from Arts and Security vendor, just straight up buying for Arts and Security, and they are actually quite a solid return for how simple these are to get. The Bracer enchant recipes are harder to get, so these need 150 Arts and Security and 1,500 kedge. Now, I don't think it's worth farming the kedge to get these, but if you do happen to have kedge left over and you are not going to do anything with it, then sure, buy Bracer enchants with it. The profit margins are fine, and there's likely to be sort of less people picking these up because of that big price tag of the kedge involved in it. There are some other chest enchants, so one of them is bind on pickup, which means it's not particularly easy to unlock. That's sort of a really high value when it comes to concentration, but I don't think it's particularly worth farming out the amount of gold you get from that. So there's two other ones that you can pick up as chest enchants. These are fine. These are both recipes that you pick up from the auction house. You just buy them from whatever the cheapest server is, and they're doing quite well at the moment as well. So the cloak enchants, very similar to the chest enchants that are coming off the auction house. Once again, sort of reasonably decent profit margins, and you're just going to get these recipes straight off the auction house from whichever server is the cheapest in your region. Now, the cursed ring enchants, these have good profit margins on them as well. And the thing about these is the recipes are from the auction house, but unlike the other recipes on this list, these recipes are super, super cheap. So you're talking like 1,000 gold you can pick these up for. That means that these, out of all the ones on the list, are the most likely to be picked up because there is such a small barrier to entry to get into these, and the profit margins are similar to everything else on it. So if you want an easy setup, then the Cursed Ring enchants is probably what to go for. But at the same time, this is probably the one that's going to get most flooded. So if, in my opinion, probably the one that's most likely to drop in price because there's such a low barrier to entry to be crafting these. So the last two, Radiant Power, Weapon Enchant, Authority of Debts, both of these recipes are ridiculously expensive. Now, I've been getting about 8k profit per use of concentration on the EU. It is higher on the US. So these two are definitely the highest profit concentration builds you can do with enchanting. But that huge price tag you've got associated with the recipes, it's like we said earlier, you're paying so much up front, and the amount of extra profit you're getting from it is not insane compared to the other things that are on this list. So it is a risk, and if we knew for sure that these two were going to be sort of the best weapon enchants for the whole expansion, then maybe it's worth going. But they could bring out a new weapon enchant in the next season release that makes these completely worthless. And so you just don't know what is going to happen. And that's why it's a risk spending this amount on recipes for a concentration build. So some of you are struggling with the procedure of buying recipes from another server. So I'm going to quickly show you that, and then we're going to get into what I was talking about earlier. So let's say we want to buy Authority of Depths then. We've gone to Orbis Exchange, we've gone down to the server list, we've put them in number order, sort of price order, and then we've seen it's cheapest on Eridar. So then we're going to go over to Eridar server, create a character, take the gold out of the Warband Bank, go to the auction house, buy the recipe, put the recipe in the Warband Bank, and then we're going to log back over to our main character who's going to take the recipe out. And that is the simple process of buying a recipe from another server. Now, what happens a lot of the time on the EU is similar to what happens on sort of the Brazilian servers and things like that on the US region, in that the prices tend to be much lower on these servers because there is a lot more supply than there is demand. On the EU, there's sort of more of a barrier to entry to get onto those Russian servers because you cannot play the game in English on the Russian servers. So we are going on to other servers to buy recipes, and we are going to do it in Russian, which I do not speak because I'm English and we're too lazy to learn anybody else's languages. What's important about this is not a tip that you just use for recipes. If you are playing on the EU, this is a tip that you can use all the time because you can always pick up cheap stuff from the Russian realms, and you'll see it a lot in the lists when you are searching for the cheapest stuff. It's quite easy to flip stuff from the Russian realms onto the regular realms. So this is generally just a good tip to have to do in the EU because it requires a little bit of messing about that people aren't willing to do. And if there's ever those sort of barrier to entries that people aren't willing to do, it means the value increases basically because people aren't willing to do it. You can see here, I'm looking for the Storm Riders chest enchant, and I found it on the Eversong server for 11,111. What we need to do, we need to completely log out of WoW, and we are going to switch the game, language mode, into Russian, and then we can log back in again. From now on, everything is going to be in Russian. So first things first, we need to find the server that our item is on. Now I have a translation for you here. So this is all the English to Russian server names. So basically just marry it up. Now you need to create a character. Now the name needs to be in Russian. All I do, I go on Google and just sort of Google random Russian name and just copy and paste it in there, and that is your character name. I imagine how this is like sort of a lot of bots probably get made, judging by the names that a lot of them get left with. So now using the auction house, this is where it gets really fun, guys. Recipes is the 9th category down, and enchanting is the 6th category down. Now, when I first started doing this, I mostly was doing it with pets, so I had a screenshot at the side so I could see sort of all the categories and what goes where. Down to recipes, down to enchanting, you're going to filter by current expansion, and then it sort of really filters down the list, and hopefully there's only going to be one recipe on there that costs the exact amount that you're expecting it to. So you see here, there's one costing 11,111. So that's obviously the recipe we need. Buy it, chuck it in the Warband Bank, transfer it back to our main realm. And then we're going to come out of WoW again, switch the game back to English, and go back to what we were doing before. So yeah, keep an eye out for the cheap stuff from the Russian realms, because you really can pick up stuff on there so much cheaper. And what you tend to find as well is if something gets put on sort of massively underpriced, it takes a lot longer on the Russian realms for it to sell than if it was sort of put on a medium population English or German realm or something like that. So keep an eye out for that, because you can make good money flipping, but on top of that, you can get these recipes really cheap there as well, like I have done here. So hopefully the stuff we've talked about today has helped clear up a few things for some people, and hopefully you've learned something new, at least with like the Russian realms, maybe some of the other bits with the Enchanted build as well. Anyway, guys, if you've not joined the Discord server yet, the link for that is in the description below as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.